What's going on, guys? I'm Ryan. This is Indiana Weather Online. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today's video will focus in on the severe weather potential for Friday evening. A bit more detail tonight as well, as we have more data at our fingertips to kind of walk through. We'll talk about expectations, potential time frames, hazards, all that jazz. So feel free to tune in here. We'll be live, be here for about 4 or 5 minutes, I would expect, should I say. So let's go ahead and walk through this and talk about where and when to expect severe weather here in Indiana. So starting with the first thing on your screen currently is the Storm Prediction Center, SPC for short, outlook here. This is a severe weather outlook. The yellow is a level 2 risk out of a scale of 5, goes 1 through 5, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. We have a level 2 risk in yellow, places like Vincennes, Indianapolis, Muncie, and then points northward here into Michigan, Northwest Ohio, back through Illinois. So a very large slight risk, as they call it, level 2 risk. That does cover the central and northern half of the state. Further south, for pretty much the entire state, minus that one little sliver down there by Corydon, in a marginal risk. That is a level 1 risk in dark green color. The light green color over here is indicative of just general thunderstorms that should not be severe. So we're going to call the entire state here underneath some type of severe risk for the Friday time frame. It is highest in yellow, so that'd be northern half of the state. Going into what to expect here in terms of time frames, overall hazards, we're still 2 or 3 days away from this, so there's still a little bit of uncertainty. Things can change very minorly as we move toward that Friday time frame. But let's go ahead and walk through here on one of the models that we have available to us. This is known as the Rapid Refresh model. We're going to walk through a dry Wednesday. Some rain pushing in perhaps for tomorrow. This is Thursday afternoon at this point, 2 p.m. Eastern. Got some rain showers pushing through, potentially. Not going to be a huge washout, but could be enough to kind of disrupt your outdoor plans if you do have outdoor plans throughout your Thursday afternoon for South Indiana there. Into Friday, though, attention turns to the north of us. We're going to have a warm front that's going to lift north. It's going to bring some moist, unstable air up into the state. That could trigger some thunderstorms for potentially here for Michigan. This is Friday morning here. That'll move through. It should not impact Indiana. As we move into the afternoon Friday, moist, warm air from the Gulf, it gets drawn up to the north, fills in the Great Lakes region here. So that's going to build in unstable air throughout the day. As we move into the evening hours here on Friday, this is now Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Everything I say in time frames are Eastern time, just FYI. So when I say 4 p.m., it's Eastern, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Notice we're at 8 p.m. now, close to sunset. There are no storms except that one up in Michigan that are shown here on radar in Indiana. Let's go ahead and go to 9 p.m. Now we're starting to get some cells developing here. In Illinois, Indiana border there, back through Illinois, has some pop-up little showers and storms forming up there. Let's go to 10 p.m. By 10 p.m., we have a little bit more in the way of development underway. By 11 p.m., those have pushed into the state, but really nothing robust has developed just yet. We get to midnight. Now we're talking about some storms developing here across Michigan, back through the Indiana, back through Missouri area. This could be a late night event here in the state of Indiana is what I'm trying to communicate. This is at midnight Eastern. Let's go to 1 a.m. Here's 1 a.m. Here's 2 a.m. Here's 3. By 3 a.m., this model says we have storms that's still developing here across north central Indiana, as well as back down here through southern Illinois, down by Evansville as well. So perhaps a later evening, overnight type of event here for the state of Indiana, as well as Ohio and Michigan and surrounding areas. So the reason for that is because we do have a cap in place. A cap is basically a warm layer of air that sits above us a couple thousand feet, and that warm layer prevents storm updrafts from becoming robust, growing up strong. It kind of limits that, puts a cap on it, so to speak. So when that cap is in place, storms do not like to form. Caps will weaken as the day cools. So we get towards sunset. After sunset, that cap erodes. It weakens and allows storms to go up, which is the main reason why we're seeing storms form on models later, because that cap is quite strong through the day. But as the evening goes on, the overnight period, the atmosphere cools, that cap will also weaken, and then storms develop. That's why we're seeing a later evening event. So some good news about this. Number one that I'm going to point out here is the instability. So We have, like I said, a lot of warm, moist air getting pulled up into the state, into the region here. This is your instability map. We're looking for numbers above 1,000 joules. Okay, we measure CAPE instability storm fuel in joules. So any number you see on your screen close to or over 1,000 is really good for severe weather. The higher it is, the better it is to fuel thunderstorms. So anything over 1,000 would support severe weather and storms. All right, this is Friday afternoon here. Notice how we have about 1,000 joules there across that northwest half of the state here. Anywhere in green really is where we're seeing that 1,000 plus joules of CAPE. Okay, but as we go later in the evening, the heat of the day is lost and that instability starts to weaken as we get toward the time frame those storms develop. So as these storms develop, the instability available will also be on the downtrends. That's going to overall limit this severe threat to some degree. All right, but I will say we do have still quite a bit of instability around to support a severe threat. I'm not saying there is no severe threat, but with it being in the later evening into the overnight period, it could be a lot worse if we had higher instability. The other thing I'm going to mention here is overlapping that with wind shear. We get a composite called supercell composite. This could be like tornadic activity. It could be a strong storm, severe storm activity. We want to see generally anywhere from a 4 to 5 plus on this composite parameter. And as we move into that overnight period, we're going to see that up by the warm front in Michigan, where I think the threat is highest, but also down here in Indiana, we're not seeing too much of those brighter colors or higher numbers of the composite here. We do have 4 or 5, so it's kind of on the border of what I want to see. It's enough to support severe, but it's not going to blow your mind. It says, wow, this is a huge event. It's not worth the hype, if that makes sense to you guys. All right, so overall, takeaways from this, it is trending to be a later evening Friday into the overnight Saturday morning period, so it could be an overnight threat. The overall threat could be a lot worse if storms go up during the afternoon, but right now that does appear to be unlikely due to the cap in place that will put a limit on the atmosphere. Overall, keep storm activity to a minimum until that cap weakens later on as the atmosphere cools after sunset. All right, so I'm going to leave you guys with that. Overall, we'll have updates for you tomorrow. We'll have a much better idea. Oh yeah, hazards. Sorry, did not mention hazards. Number one hazard with the overall concern tomorrow is going to be large hail. That is your number one concern. That's because even if storms can somehow break that cap will still play a role in some way, shape, or form, which will limit the overall wind and tornadic threat. Not going to say it's zero, but large hail can still be produced in these environments. So large hail, number one threat. Secondary threat, damaging winds to 60 miles per hour. Will not rule out a couple tornadoes, as well as the wind shear and the lowest levels of the atmosphere are decent. But again, we have a lot of limiting factors still to figure out before we get more confidence in that tornadic threat. So right now, hail number one threat, wind number two, uncertain but possible number three threat of a tornado or two across, especially the north half of the state, close to that Michigan border. All right. With that being said, I'm going to pop out of here. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. We'll have more details, another video, and probably a live stream briefing here on the page to go over the threat and talk it over and answer some questions if you guys have any. So with that being said, I'm going to pop out. You guys enjoy your evening. Stay safe. I'm Ryan. It's IWO. I'll catch you all tomorrow.